So, Netflix has dropped the full trailer of their Atla live action, and oh boy am I excited. Though the comments are turned off for some reason, which I speculate has something to do with why the views of this trailer are a bit low as of recording this. But nevertheless, we are here to share my analysis and breakdown on this trailer. So be seated and be comfortable, my dear, here in mine mind. So, we hear the narrator, which I presume to be Gyatso, speaking about the Fire Nation. But to whom he is speaking this to is a mystery. Mayhaps a council of air nomads is what I think, about their observations of the Fire Nation. But this might be a bit odd, as it implies Gyatso knew to some extent the Fire Nation's machinations and ambitions. But at the same time, we see an ornate Fire Nation ship, in fact a fleet. And judging by the icy waters, this is the fleet that will probably lay siege to the Northern Water Tribe. Also, this is the same ship that hosts Admiral Zhao in the show, so definitely his fleet that'll lay siege to the north. Then we see a beautiful shot of the gang flying with Appa over a lush mountain that notably have some bald spots of forest. We will get to that later, keep that noted for a moment. Then we see the full assault on the Southern Air Temple. Again, very excited to see the air versus firebenders fighting. Also, very great architecture, an improvement really on the original show. Makes the setting more vast and real. It actually looks more like a temple with vast, solemn, and tranquil grounds rather than the just one large tower. This is actually more akin to the South Asian Buddhist temples in real life. But what is really interesting is that in the very next scene, we see is who we can only assume is Fire Lord Sozin himself, leading his troops into this very same temple. Now, the fire that rushes against him is probably because he is facing off against an airbender who is deflecting some of their fire. You can even notice the gusts of air effects pushing against his armor as well. Here, it is really confirmed that Sozin is actually fighting an airbender. Notice the very human figure under his flames, or behind his flames. And this mysterious person is probably none other than our narrator himself, Monk Gyatso, since it was confirmed that Sozin and Gyatso will be meeting each other in a scene. And this will be very interesting since both were former friends of Avatar Roku. Really nice that we get to see how powerful Gyatso is, since it was alluded to in the original show that he took down several firebenders with him under Sozin's comet. Probably why Sozin went to this specific temple is cause he knows this is where Roku trained with Gyatso, and so maybe he's thinking if Avatar Roku, a firebender, will reincarnate to the next element, air, maybe there's a higher chance that he'll reincarnate into a place that's familiar with him, which is the Southern Air Temple where he learned airbending. And he was actually right, because the Southern Air Temple is where Aang lived throughout his life. Also notice what seems to be Southeast Asian dragon iconography on Sozin's helmet. Very nice touch. Then, of course, we see Aang epically awakened by Sokka and Katara. Then we have 3 scenes of the Fire Nation. First is what seems to be the capital. And if this is indeed the capital, I really like the change they made, making it more realistic but still maintaining a fantastical element of it. They made it close to water, a port city, which makes sense for most dominant cities in real life actually, making it easier to project power and economic benefits throughout the territory. But the mountains behind the capital might allude to it, just like in the show, being in the center of the crater of an inactive volcano. Then we cut into the throne room where we see Ozai and his court. 3 military officials and seemingly 1 nobleman. What they are discussing is really unclear to me, though the nobleman might even be Mei's father. Maybe this is where he is assigned to oversee the captured or to be captured city of Omashu, or maybe that's in season 2 perhaps. But also notice a female general or military official. This is a nice detail as the Fire Nation does not discriminate between the sexes in terms of military duty, unlike the Northern Water Tribe. It is culture in the Fire Nation to display your potential fighting prowess regardless of sex. And that is a very nice detail, and that is what gives you status in the Fire Nation. Now, who they are staring at is a mystery. Though the other court members seem to be surprised, Ozai is still stoic in his expression though. Let's also appreciate the design of the walls and the gold ornamentation of the leveling effect of the platforms of the throne room. The intricate patterns behind the fire look like extensions of the fire itself, really ornate and regal and somewhat intimidating, befitting of the Fire Nation indeed. Then we see Azula shooting arrows. Mayhaps she is actually training with the Yuyan archers of the Fire Nation. Then we get a sudden explosion in what might be Omashu, judging by the ornate roofs and stone roads and walls. This is most likely not Kyoshi Island thusly. And interestingly enough, we see Teo, the wheelchair-ridden son of a mechanist. It seems that they might be omitting the Northern Air Temple because that's originally where we meet Teo and the mechanist, or perhaps they're just planning to do something different with it. Anyway, the explosion might be the Fire Nation attacking and conquering Omashu, or the mechanist having an accident. To be honest, maybe this is how they get summoned to King Bumi, especially if it's the latter and not the Fire Nation attacking. Then we get to see Earthbenders, or at least Earth Kingdom soldiers. They ride, of course, their iconic bird-horse hybrids, forgot what they're called though. Though it seems that they might be changing this scene from Iroh getting captured to maybe something else. I'm not really sure why Iroh and Zuko are meeting this group of Earth Kingdom soldiers, but since Iroh is clearly not being taken by this host, this scene probably has changed. Because it actually looks like Zuko is ambushing them. Maybe the plot where they are being hunted, both him and Iroh, is brought earlier into the story where they are properly banished and made wanted criminals. That's probably why they're wearing normal clothes, not necessarily Fire Nation clothes, which to me doesn't really make sense though, and I'm not sure how they'll write that in. And then we have more beautiful shots of the now ruined Southern Air Temple, but still beautiful architecture, and what is most likely the siege of the Northern Water Tribe, judging by the more solid and larger architecture. Okay, Katara's voice is honestly really good, and thank goodness it's not ong or ung. But yes, her voice is good enough actually to be Katara's voice for me at least. Then we see Kyoshi Island and a very nice reference to the intro of the original show with Aang using his air scooter technique, which by the way he developed, and that's why he has the airbender tattoos of a master, and bumping into a stone statue. And Sokka too has a very nice voice. That Sokka sarcasm is on point, and of course he's always hungry. I gladly present to you right here lore accurate Sokka. Then we see what is probably Zuko's ship in the South Pole, less ornate and smaller since he is banished. We see then Iroh. Very nice casting, really looks like General Uncle Iroh, and a very nice outfit I do say. Like how they made the iconic Fire Nation shoulder pad things, very nice. And put their own design and twist to it somehow. Then we see a close-up of the Fire Nation armor. Very intimidating and eerie and somewhat soulless. Very nice how the Fire Nation is based on Chinese, Japanese, and Thai motifs, or Southeast Asian motifs in general, and designs in their clothing and armor, as we saw with Southeast Asian dragon adorning Sozin's armor and the face mask of these soldiers resembling more of a Japanese kind of helmet, and the chest plate resembles some Chinese armor in history. And Zuko's voice is also really fitting. They really nailed the voices, to be honest. And of course, speaking of destiny, that's definitely Zuko. With the passion and obsession, I can hear it in his voice. Very nice. And somewhat of a close-up and comment on the scar. I wish they made it more detailed and more intense, just like Aang's tattoos, which are also technically scars if you think about it. They made it more ornate with Aang. I hope they really made it more detailed with Zuko's scar as well. Then we have Uncle Iroh firebending at the Earth Kingdom soldiers, though I do think this one particular scene here is a bit too slow and less powerful for me. But the rest of the firebending is actually quite great. Then we see Ozai as he shows Zuko to learn respect. I do hope there are spectators. That's part of the emotion and gravitas of this scene. Iroh looking away, Azula reveling at the display, and other generals that we encounter in the series there to witness as Zuko screams. But what is very interesting is to see that Zuko actually attempts to fight back, or at least is properly participating in the Agni Kai. In the show, he just begs and does nothing really, and then he's scarred. Then we have Aang stating that he does not want to be the Avatar, also having some emotion and drama and problems on his own. Very nice. Both of them are actually dealing with stuff regarding their destiny. And then some nice chemistry and bonding on a lighter note between the members of the gang. Very nice to see. The chemistry is really important since they're a group and their dynamics are really core, or at least a part of the core of the show's success. And that Katara laugh is really on point for me. It really kind of sounds similar to the original though. Again, the attire is so beautiful. The water flowing imagery on Katara and the subtle patterns in Sokka's attire, very nice. Then we see Jin with her sheer shoe in what seems to be Kyoshi village, judging by the house. Maybe this is how Zhao tracks them down in Kyoshi village. Well, damn, there's a lot of changes because originally Zuko hired Jin, so. And then we have Aang flying over a wall, maybe it's a Fire Nation camp. And I did not know this at first, but I just realized that this creature, or rather spirit right here, is actually Heibai. Remember the forest earlier? That's his forest. He's the spirit of that forest. Very nice alien look. Good they did not make him as smooth as in the show. This one has more of a grittier, much more raw, and to be honest, scary feel to it that really adds to the ferocity. Okay, very nice technique using the mist from Aang, and Zhao confronting Kyoshi village. Now this is very exciting for me. Lore accurate Zhao, so easily pissed. Very nice Japanese-inspired outfit from Suki's mom. Love how they use the metal fans to deflect the fire blasts. We can see Sokka and Suki fighting, of course. Wonder if Suki's mom fights with them, though. But it is odd to me, though, that Suki's not wearing makeup. Then we surprisingly see Teo and Aang fly around the much wider and grander version of Omashu. I really appreciate how they elevated the settings of this show. Here is hoping to that the plot changes that they made aren't that detrimental though. Okay, the blue spirit, gee I wonder who that is helping Aang. And note, for later in the series, those people right there probably died. So Aang, just be aware of that. This is probably in the first episode where they decide to save Aang from Zuko's capture and start their whole journey. Really not sure what that cave scene was where he hugs Sokka and Katara, maybe one of the other changes they made. Then we see Aang using airbending and Sokka using his boomerang. Okay, finally, this is definitely lore-accurate Sokka. Sarcasm, food, and boomerang. Nailed it. And then, Boomy! Very nice earthbending. I kinda like his look. Actually, very scraggly and unkempt. Very nice. Very nice technique as well from Aang, displaying the typical airbender tactics of avoid and evade. Then we see some powerful waterbending from Katara against Zuko in the North Pole. They changed this fight scene though. Now it seems they're in a confined room rather than the spirit oasis. And notice she turns the water into ice midway. Then we see Jet, very amazing choreography deflecting those fire blasts. Though that implies that the fire blasts are somewhat solid. Oh well, let's suspend our disbelief. It is fantasy. Then a very different outcome of the first fight between Aang and Zuko have in the South Pole, much flashier and more explosive than the original. That's probably when he realizes he must offer himself to Zuko so they can leave the Southern Water Tribe alone. And the Avatar state, really nice how it glows up the intricate designs of the tattoo as it travels throughout Aang's body. This is probably when he finds out Monkey Yatso has died. Probably staring at his corpse like right in front of him. Well, oh yes, this trailer gives me a lot of excitement, though the various plot changes are a bit worrisome. But on the whole, I am more exuberant about this show, with some worries, yes. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. I really do appreciate the elevation of the settings, the locations of the Avatar world, the architecture just wonderful. It really makes the world more grounded, more expansive than in the show. I can go on and on about architecture, about everything about this trailer, but yes, aside from uncertain plot changes, the settings, attire, voices, and bending are largely well done and very exciting to see. I know my mind will stay tuned. What about your own mind? What do you think about this trailer? But this has been my thoughts here in Mine Mind. Like, comment, and subscribe. You are always welcome here in Mine Mind.